What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be creating a couple starter classes that you can create pretty much right from the beginning as soon as you start playing the game. And these classes are going to be designed to help you be as effective as possible at the game. So you're not basically messing around using things that aren't really helping you too much. These are designed to be very effective for you. And I'm actually going to walk you through as I'm creating them, rather than just showing them to you and telling you to copy and paste them, because there's a few things here that may be a little bit of a personal preference, so you might prefer something over whatever I have, and I'll try to explain the reasons that I'm using certain things, because you might not understand why I chose a certain attachment or something over a different attachment. So let's get started with this first class. We'll just make two today. The BAL-27 and the AK-12 are both unlocked by default, so I'm going to select the BAL-27. I feel like this is a better all-around versatile gun compared to the AK-12, because it does kill in 3 shots up close, whereas the AK-12 kills in 4 up close. So I feel like this is great up close, but it's not too bad at a longer range as well. So we're going to select the BAL, and for attachments, some of these attachments take a little while to earn, so I want to select some attachments that are very basic and easy to earn for you. Like the foregrip, for instance, requires 10 kills while aiming down sight, so you should be able to do that within a game or two. So foregrip is what we'll use. I like using the stock, but that requires 20 hipfire kills with the BAL, and that takes a little while to unlock. At least it took me a little while to unlock. Instead, I'm going to go with the quick draw grip. This one requires 10 headshots, so this one you can unlock relatively quickly as well. You might have to grind through a few games without it and kind of sacrifice that, but these are 2 great attachments to get you started that aren't too difficult to unlock. As for a secondary, I really like the RW1 pistol, and I don't even have any attachments unlocked for it yet because I don't really get too many kills with it. It's just nice to have just in case. Plus, since we can't do any wildcards, we're assuming that we're like right at the beginning of the game and we haven't really unlocked much. Since we don't have any wildcards, then we might as well use a perk point or one of our pick 13 points on a secondary. So perk 1, I highly recommend using low profile, just for the beginning of the game, and this is for the simple fact that people aren't really familiar with how things flow and how the maps work yet, and therefore a lot of people are really relying on their mini-maps to tell them where enemies are, rather than just knowing that this is where enemies normally are, or something like that. So being off the radar is going to be very advantageous, because those people that really rely on the minimap are suddenly not going to be able to find you, or at least not quite as easy. Perk 2, this is basically coming from your side now. You want to be able to find your enemies a little bit easier, and since we don't really know the maps like the back of our hand yet, peripherals is going to be very helpful, because it allows you to see a little bit more on the minimap. You'll be able to see a little further, and it also, I find it helps me kind of understand my surroundings a little bit better if I glance up at the minimap. So peripherals is a great perk for that. Now for the perk 3, toughness. I know toughness isn't quite as powerful or as needed as it was in previous games. The default flinch has actually been nerfed pretty decently well, but that doesn't mean that you still aren't at a disadvantage if you aren't using toughness and your enemy is using toughness. You will still be at a disadvantage. So therefore, I highly recommend toughness. Now, I really like Blast Suppressor as well, because it helps keep you off the radar when you're using your exo abilities. You no longer pop up as that little blip on the radar. But you don't unlock the wild cards for the perks until level 17. So I highly recommend once you hit level 17 to use toughness as well as Blast Suppressor. But until you do that, we'll just assume you haven't quite reached level 17 yet, and we'll continue on with building this class. So for the exos, I actually find I don't use them too often. Most of the times I just forget to use them, or I just use them at a really bad time and it ends up getting me killed, so I usually don't use them. But if I do use them, I usually use either Stim or Overclock. And I believe both of these are unlocked by default, or right at the beginning. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are. For this one, let's just throw Stim on, and we'll just assume that we're going to be playing the objective a little bit with this class, or we potentially will run into a bunch of enemies and we want to use Stim. Now, for the lethal, or for the exo launcher, we only start off having the frag and stun grenade unlocked. My preference is the Semtex, but since we're assuming we haven't quite made it there yet, we'll choose one or the other, either frag or stun grenade. This one is really just personal preference. I find the frag grenade doesn't really get me very many kills. I think I've only ever gotten a couple kills, and I've launched a ton of those things. So I prefer going with the stun grenade because that almost guarantees me a kill if I know where an enemy is. I can stun him, and then I'm guaranteed that kill against him. So we'll go with one of those, and let's move on to the score streaks. So for the score streaks to start out, I want to go with things that are very easy to earn, because it's not very likely that my knowledge and game skill at this point are going to allow me to go on really high streaks. So I want to use the UAV with the support module, as well as the extra time. That's just an extra little bonus for 100 points. I don't want to add too many of these modules and bump that cost up way too much. But I like adding that one extra module to give you the extra time, because like I said before, we really want to be able to use our mini-map to figure out player movement and how maps flow. For the second score streak, I used to use the care package, but then I found it kept giving me streaks that were basically useless and would take me out of the game for no reason. Like, it would get me some streak that would get me no kills, but it would take me out of the action for 30 seconds, and I found that to be a little bit annoying. So I tend to stay away from the orbital care package now, and I actually like going with the aerial assault drone that's AI controlled. The reason for this is I can call it in, and I can continue on killing people with my gun, and it gets me a kill or two every now and then. It doesn't usually net you like a ton of kills, but one or two, and that always helps. It's a nice easy streak to earn as well. And then finally, I'm a really big fan of the bombing run, and I actually like it as is. I don't even need to add any modules to it. I typically get 3 or 4 kills, depending on the map and everything, with the bombing run, so I find it's a really effective streak. And you'll notice we are left with 1 extra point, so let's just add another stun grenade, because there's nothing else we can really add at this point. Like I said, once you get to level 17, that's when you should start branching out into your wildcards, and I actually recommend just not using an EXO ability. And as far as the launchers go, you don't really need 2 of them. You may not need a secondary. I would much rather have more perks than anything. So that's the first class. Now let's create another one that's an SMG class, because that was obviously an assault rifle class. So let's make a good submachine gun class. Now the submachine guns aren't that great, but if I were going to pick one, it would be the KF5. This is the best SMG in my opinion, and you actually start with it unlocked already by default. And again, we'll pick some attachments that are already like very easy to unlock. Like for instance, the foregrip, really easy to unlock again. I really enjoy using the advanced rifling on this, but I can't remember what the challenge is for that. It does take a little while to unlock that though, from what I remember. So again, we'll go with foregrip and suppressor whenever you unlock that suppressor. I kind of like staying off the map and being really stealthy with my SMG play. I like getting onto the enemy's flank and playing that way rather than challenging enemies head on. For our secondary, I don't think we need one at this point, but if we have an extra point, we will add a secondary on this. I'm actually just making these on the fly, kind of making it up as I go and going through my thought process here. Now for this one, again, I want to stay off the radar, especially with this suppressor. So we are going to use low profile, and we're also going to use peripherals again. These are 2 perks that once we get like a few weeks into the game's life cycle, I probably won't use very often, just because I will know how the maps flow, I will know the maps much better, and I'll feel a whole lot more confident in popping up on the enemy's radar. I won't really care that I'm popping up on the enemy's radar. So I am not going to use low profile like later on, but at this point I feel like it's very valuable. And again, toughness. Very, very important to have toughness. Now for this one, let's just assume that we have reached level 17. I will throw Blast Suppressor on there. Exo ability, I don't want an Exo ability. I find it doesn't really help you too much. And now that we've gotten to level 17, I think maybe we have Semtex unlocked. Assuming that. I'm not too sure, but if you do, I really enjoy the Semtex because I actually find it quite easy to stick enemies with the Semtex. It's actually surprisingly easy. And again, I'm kind of stuck on using the support UAV as my first streak. It's always nice to have a guaranteed UAV. Ooh, I should have turned my notifications off. I almost never have them on, so sorry about that, but we're gonna have a few notifications this video, or at least one. And for this one, I want to use bombing run again. I really enjoy the bombing run, and I want to actually use a sentry turret. So I want to make sure the sentry attachment's on this. Without sentry, I find this thing to be useless because it just takes you away from the fight. You can't move around, and you basically sit in one spot, and if you catch an enemy off guard, you might be able to get a kill, but it doesn't really deal a whole lot of damage, so it's not ideal. So There we go. We have one more perk left, or one more point left. So in this case, it really comes down to personal preference. We could use the RW1 again, or we could move on to an EXO ability if you'd like. Overclock is a great choice for this class. It'll allow you to get to your power positions a whole lot faster, because you're already pretty mobile with this SMG, but now with Overclock, you can get there that much faster. So there we go. I just created 2 great starter classes for Advanced Warfare. If you were to copy and paste these, maybe change a few things around that will work for you a little bit better, I promise you, you will find a little bit more success than just picking like the standard basic classes that you are basically stuck with. Whatever those ones are, the custom classes that are already created. These ones are much better. So that's going to wrap it up for today's video. If you enjoyed, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.